9:30, and I'm going to go ahead and start recording and welcome you all to our very last Zoom session. I am very, very excited. I had an afternoon of SWOT presentations from your cohort in Nashville and really enjoyed it, and so I'm really excited to hear you all's as well. Just a couple of reminders to get us started and hopefully clicking along. The announcements that I had for today, I went ahead and sent out via email, so keep in mind with those deadlines we have this week, we have a couple, so please review that when you're done with this, and you can kind of think a little clearer about that. With regard to your presentations, we agreed that we would kind of shoot for around 15 minutes each, but you do have up to 20 before the clock stops. But I will go ahead, just for the respect and courtesy of your peers. If you hit 20 minutes, I'll go ahead and just kind of call time there. And if you're just on your very last slide or whatever, we can go ahead and wrap that up. But just know that I will be timing at 20 minutes. And we won't have much time for questions, but I might just throw one or two out there just for clarification or anything like that as we're moving through. But of course, if anybody does have any questions, please speak up. We would like for this to be an interactive process. And we are going to go in group order, as I mentioned, and we'll go ahead and start with group one whenever you're ready. And you can just go ahead and do a screen share, whoever is in charge of that. Group one, are y'all ready to go?
Yes, let me start sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. Oh, and one last thing, as you're going through, just because sometimes I don't see you all, just make sure that I know who's talking, because you'll have your screen share on, and I won't have the little cubes up.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. So my name's Courtney, and we did our SWOT analysis on Chattanooga Cares. The group is Victoria, Christine, and Ashley, and Victoria was our POC. She works at Chattanooga Cares. So this is our overview. The mission is to reach, assist, and support people who are impacted by HIV, hepatitis C, and STIs through compassionate, responsive delivery of education, health, social, and advocacy-related services. And we'll kind of go through what that exactly means and what the agency actually does for people. You can see when they're organized, and they receive their nonprofit status 2 years later. They provide prevention, testing, and treatment. In the fiscal year of 2016 through 17, they served 779 clients with a revenue of over $9 million and total expenses over $8 million for that year.
So we wanted to set the stage of social, political, and the social, political, and technological landscape regarding HIV and other STIs. Just looking at hepatitis C, the infection rate of that has tripled the number of HIV, and the related deaths have almost doubled. If you look at the chart on the right, Chattanooga falls into the Hamilton County, and in 2014, they reported 250 diagnosed cases per 100,000 people. The other counties listed are the ones that directly surround Hamilton County, and Chattanooga Care serves those counties as well as other counties beyond that. In terms of the political implications, in the state of Tennessee, transmission of infectious diseases such as HIV, hepatitis C, and STIs are considered a criminal offense. And then, of course, there's still social stigma surrounding HIV. So if somebody discloses their HIV status, they can be perceived as dangerous. In many ways, this discourages testing and prevention. There's still some confusion surrounding how HIV is transmitted. And then there's obstacles for people that are diagnosed with HIV in terms of obtaining treatment, housing, employment, and education. And that's compounded when you consider intersectionality. So people might already find obstacles in regards to those things with their race, immigration status, sexual orientation, and other things like that. So then you add HIV on top of that, and it can make it very difficult. In terms of technological innovation, CARES is the first community-based organization in the area to offer PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, and that's a once-a-day pill that's regarded to be the future of HIV prevention.
Hi everyone, this is Victoria. To jump into the strengths of behind Chattanooga Cares, we broke it down into 4 categories: management, professional services, resources for clients, and then expenditures and revenue. So under management, we have where the directors meet weekly to discuss the strengths and weaknesses. This typically happens on a Wednesday, early in the morning. This just allows them to touch up of what occurred in the past week and the things that each department is working to gain and do that following week. The CEO meets with the board of board members each month to discuss actions taken in the upcoming month and etc. So what she does is once a month, the board members, which is a group of about 10 individuals, meet in the evening to discuss different things that happen. Quarterly status reports are given to by the executive director, and this also is presented to the board members. Under the professional services, we have the administrative. So CARES is broken down into administrative, the clinical services, support services, and outreach, which we call prevention. Within those departments, we have 2 board certified infectious disease doctors and LCSW. So they are on site every day to assist and provide care to our clients. And then they have daily hurdles between clinic and case managers to review client cases, and like any questions about people who are having issues with their suppression rates and things as such. They meet first thing in the morning before they even enter into or any clients enter into the building. So this just allows the case managers and the clinic to collaborate and see where this next, where does a certain client need to go, if they need to go to case management and everything in that such. Resources for clients. So this falls under the medical case managers. And with that, they have several different departments within that support services department. So they have housing, they have the market, and then transportation. With housing, they assist with rent, utilities, hotels, deposits, everything under that. Market just is where they provide fresh food and produce for their clients. And it was stated that 84,000 pounds of food was distributed between 2016 and 2017. And then transportation is also available to the clients to help them get to and from their doctor's appointments if they need it. Expenditures and revenue. Revenue exceeds expenditures by over $1 million for the fiscal year of 2017. They also have detailed reports basically on reviewing on how they allocate the funds. And then 215 individuals are corporate donors, so that just means that they do have individuals within the agency that do give back to Chattanooga Cares.
Some of the weaknesses that we identified, this is Courtney again, I'm sorry, are communication, availability of services, leadership, a new strategic plan, and human resources. With under communication, there is a lack of long-term employees. They did have a high turnover rate. Internal communication amongst employees was weak. Agency does have volunteers, but they are not utilized, and client surveys are not implemented to evaluate the services they provide. Availability of services, there is 1 driver to transport clients from rural areas, and media communications are low. So as far as social media to reach potential clients, seeing as we are now a social media type of society. Leadership, not many leaders attend fundraising events, which leaves the prevention section, which is comprised of about 6 to 7 people who are being rotated between these events to be burned out. Board members contribute to the agency, but their amount has not increased. And there's also a pressure on employees to contribute partial pay to the agency, such as they're trying to get 100% and they're only at 80%, and they let that be known. A new strategic plan. CARES is undergoing some new changes to their mission, to their name, to their logo, and right now there are no specific goals for the current term. In human resources, there is no human resources on site. They have to outsource for that.
Hi, everyone. This is Ashley. I have the opportunity. So some of the opportunities we identified was the availability of services. Chattanooga Cares is currently undergoing some changes that include implementing a remote clinic for clients. So basically, it will be just like the Chattanooga clinic. It'll have the same things, but it will be set up as a mobile clinic in an RV, just like an office, and offer the services that Chattanooga Cares offers. Another thing they're planning to implement is mobile testing, which will be a mobile van that would only do they will only test for HIV. Another opportunity we identified was that they outsource to other populations to receive funding. One fundraiser Chattanooga Cares does is the Strides for March, which they do every year, and the past year raised them $54,000. So those types of fundraisers will continue to increase the funding for Chattanooga Cares. An opportunity that we identified was that they had a lack of social media presence. In this day and age, we just know that that is an important means for clients to know of events and know of the kind of services that Chattanooga Cares offers. An opportunity was that they are a leader in education and innovation. They offer pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is a pill for HIV prevention for people that are at high risk for contracting HIV. They are the only agency in Chattanooga that offers this, so that just sets them above. And to continue to offer that would continue to do that for the agency. As mentioned before, they are undergoing a new mission and vision, so that will include better reaching and serving the clients and developing new report and vision for staff. When in doing so, they did apparently let go a lot of people that had been in the agency for a long time that were preventing the agency from growing. So just getting those new hires in would promote diversity and just increase the amount of people for different ages, races, ethnicity, and so on that are in the agency to promote new ideas.
Hi, this is Christy again. So the three threats that we identified were funding, resources for clients, and agency change. Regarding funding, just like any other agency, they're competing for funding, and they apply for grants every year. Of course, those are not guaranteed, and nor do they know the amount that they're going to receive each year. In terms of resources for clients, there are federal state mandates from the funding that does not allow the agency to treat undocumented immigrants. So if they find themselves treating an undocumented immigrant, that could compromise the agency and the funding. Regarding the housing that they provide, they cannot assist sex offenders with that. And then employees set goals for clients, and if the clients don't meet those by the time that they said that they would, then their housing services can be terminated. So there's definitely a sensitive dance that needs to happen there between employees and clients to make sure that that doesn't happen. And then finally, just the agency change. Courtney mentioned the agency's doing a huge overhaul of their name, their services, et cetera. So we don't know yet what the community reaction is going to be to that change. It depends upon how strong the marketing is, how clear they are about their name, that they still exist, the services, et cetera. So that could be positive, or there could be some negative implications to that as well. And then, of course, amidst all of this change, they're hiring externally. So they will need to be training external hires, and also those external hires will come into the agency not knowing the history of the agency or really what manifested the change among it. So there can just be some tension between new hires and old staff.
Okay, so while conducting the SWOT analysis, we realized the agency was lacking a means to measure clients' experiences. Research showed that accounting for their experience is vital in evaluating the quality of services, and surveys, especially phone surveys, can be both convenient and effective in doing so. While doing the research, some things to account for if the agency was to implement surveys to evaluate patients' experiences are that sometimes when patients are experiencing longer wait times, that causes the patients to rate services poorly, and also that the research showed that more negative experiences were Evaluations from people with more negative experiences were those in the categories of people with younger age, ethnic minorities, and living in social economically deprived areas. So that is something to account for if they implement that.
So in conclusion, this is Victoria again. The agency, like they stated before, is undergoing changes to revamp the mission and approach. So they literally are trying to give themselves a new beginning. So they have a new name, new everything, new symbol, literally new everything. Employees seen as a hindrance to agency have been let go, which is, still kind of high. We do have a high turnover rate. Reputation of CARES has improved, meaning, from the negative side of what they thought CARES was in the past to what it is now. They have done that. They also want to implement new technology advancements, meaning more, instead of paper applications and paperwork, they want to go into more of technology. So everything's online for the case managers. The pads that you can just sign your signature on, they want those as well. More iPads involved and stuff like that. And then, like I said, going paperless and more education and training for the staff. So with that being said, like they've been implementing more trainings that are culture competency, things that will better help us assist our population that we serve. All right.
So that is our presentation. We hope you guys enjoyed it.
Great, really well done. Thank you. I just have one clarifying question about the, you said the research for changes. You said that that there were surveys that were being conducted through SMS, text messages?
No, they actually don't. They don't have any means of measuring what the clients think of the services,
So
and that's
what,
something that.
So then what was it you were talking about?
It's basically when we were looking at it, I know one aspect of the rubric was the critical thinking. So basically what we were looking at and identifying the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats was that was something that it was seen to be important in community service agencies, and that was something that they were lacking. So we just tried to discuss that more in that slide.
Oh, so you're saying that, I'm just trying to understand what that was. That a study that you were referring to?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what was, okay. So I was like, how are they? I thought you said they weren't doing surveys.
No, they don't have it. Yeah, it was a study.
Surveys that you were talking about. So I got a little, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just that was a particular study where they use SMS, and they found that patients reported negative experiences who fall into certain categories, but that was the study that was researching SMS survey usage with a certain service population.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, no, anybody have any questions for group one? All right, thank you all. Good job, everybody. All right, we can go ahead and stop share group one, and group two can move on when you're ready. Just make sure you, there we go. Good.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Kendria Smith. This presentation of our SWOT analysis is for the YWCA Nashville, Middle Tennessee Domestic Violence Shelter. And it's brought to you by Paige Harris, Brandy Crawley, Abby Smith, and Kendria Smith. That's me. So the mission statement for the YWCA in general is dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And so the YWCA has a number of programs within the agency, but that is their mission for all of them. And then also they all run on the basis of empowerment as well. We can move on to the next slide. There we go. So this model helps them to accomplish their mission. So as I was saying, the YWCA is bases its services for all the programs on this empowerment model. And the model emphasizes 4 main themes: becoming aware of the power dynamics at work in a client's life context, developing the skills and capacity for gaining some reasonable control over their lives, exercising this control without infringing upon the rights of others, supporting the empowerment of others in their community. So the shelter staff is available to assist the clients with the continued process of defining their goals, actions towards achieving these goals, learning and gleaning information from these actions, and continuously setting new goals. And so the whole purpose of this is to build self-efficacy, because we're talking about, survivors of domestic violence. And so they're coming in with very low self-esteem, basically restarting their lives. And so this model is what the shelter basically thrives on. So the thing about this is, as part of the empowerment model, these services that are provided at the shelter are voluntary, and clients are not required to participate in order to remain at shelter. So the shelter is a 45-day stay, and they can take part of all the services that are free for them to help them to, build their lives and move forward, or they can do absolutely nothing at all. And so that can be a bit of an issue at times. So we'll move on to the next slide. So the overview, there we go. So the shelter overview. So it's the Weaver Domestic Violence Center. We call it the DV Shelter. It was founded in 1981. The shelter consists of 51 beds, and as I was saying, offers a 45-day stay within like dormitory style community living. It serves about 500 survivors a year, and that includes children as well as women. And there's an average of 650 crisis calls each month. And so the services at the shelter include the crisis line. It's a support helpline that the DV specialists answer, and it's 24/7. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday. There's always someone in the office to answer that line. The Weaver Domestic Violence Center, the shelter itself, is the service where people stay. And there is the DV specialists are there to work with the clients at all times. The Renew program it was founded in 2010, and it furnishes the apartments of some of the women and children who are participating in the housing program, and clients are selected based on it's need-based. And the program is completely voluntarily run. And so the housing program itself consists of its funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and provides up to 12 months of housing assistance for selected clients. So that means they can move into this transitional housing and get on their feet and have funding for a year as they work and try to save up money so they can stay in their housing. And so they work with there's a housing case manager that they're assigned to, and that housing case manager helps them with eligibility and being able to secure a position. But there are very few, and sometimes there's a freeze, and sometimes there are no positions for housing. Let's see. And so for the client demographics, shelter services are available to anyone living within the Nashville-Davidson County area. But the 24-hour crisis support helpline is available to any person nationwide. And so when people call in, we do safety planning with them. If they need housing, we'll approve them for housing. And the programs are available to individuals within, again, Nashville, regardless of their race, ethnicity, religion, gender. There is a separate housing for men. So when men call in, because they are survivors, we don't turn them away, but there's separate housing. Regarding employees, the shelter includes 22 full-time staff and 12 part-time staff. And I have a separate slide that shows like the breakdown of the org charts for the roles. And then for economics, the majority of funding is through government grants, corporate sponsors and individual contributions as well. So when we were talking about the funding, I wasn't able to get specific numbers for these 3 areas, but it consists of overall shelter needs, the transitional housing, and the Renew program expenses. And so according to the annual report where I pulled these numbers from, the total expenses when you combine these 3, it's about $2 million, I squared it off here, it's $2,033,306, so for their overall expenses. And the funding, the program funding overall for the agency, the DV services is 59% of the funding. So more than half of the funding that the YW gets goes towards the DV services. Let's see, and then we're looking at the org chart next when we talk about staff. So this is the breakdown, and so we said there's 22 full-time and 12 part-time staff members. The agency mainly consists of frontline case managers, therapists, and DV specialists who work one-on-one with the clients and really help to enforce that empowerment model. The shelter is always open, and there are always 2 DV specialists at the shelter at all times.
Okay, this is Paige, and I'm going to discuss briefly about some of the organization culture. The YWCA has several policies that foster emotional bonding. And first is the Sunshine Policy, and this policy recognizes and commemorates significant events in the lives of their employees. This fund is employee funded, but participation is completely voluntary. Each employee that participates is charged 50 cents per paycheck that is payroll deducted, and all staff may contribute to and benefit from this fund. And listed to the right is a chart of qualifying events and maximum budgetary limits for each event. Another policy that seems to foster emotional bonding is the Employee Assistance Policy, in which the organization recognizes that employees' work performance can be negatively impacted by life stressors. This policy provides the chance to utilize confidential short-term counseling and referral services. This service is free and for employees and/or their dependents, and pays up for up to 6 face-to-face counseling visits per calendar year. Lastly, the YWCA has paid parental bonding leave available to their employees. This leave pays for up to 6 weeks of regular paid time off for parental bonding purposes. And parental bonding, according to the YWCA, refers to time off work for maternity, paternity, adoption, or foster placement. The YWCA also seems to foster diversity by providing cultural opportunities. For example, they require online trainings that discuss cultural diversity that must be completed during the hiring process. The YWCA increases gender diversity by offering paid parental bonding leave and providing part-time work, swing shifts, and work-at-home opportunities, which are ideal for women in the workforce. In addition, the YWCA has a wellness and safety leave policy, and this policy allows employees to obtain paid time off to care for a dependent family member whose school or place of care has been closed due to unsafe conditions, for example, inclement weather or loss of heating or water.
Hi, this is Abby. After conducting our analysis on the shelter, we found these strengths. The organizational culture that fosters emotional bonding and diversity. The programs that Paige explained previously help the shelter attract and retain talented and dedicated staff. As a result of the operating success of the shelter, they will be expanding by 14 beds in the fall of 2019 to a total of 65 beds. This indicates that the shelter has the resources not only to maintain their current operations, but to increase them as well. Additionally, the agency creates a new strategic plan each year and maintains a 3-year long-term strategic plan. one of the more recent strategic plans resulted in the creation of the AMEND program, which is an anti-domestic violence program that focuses on boys and men, and they are currently active in the Nashville area.
Hi, this is Brandy. Okay, I had the weaknesses, and one of the weaknesses we found within the shelter was the shelter capacity. Okay, she just mentioned how they were going to expand from 51 beds to 65, but however, due to the call volume is still a weakness within the shelter. Another weakness was the exit forms. Staff and management, they noticed that the clients have a lack of voice within the shelter due to abandonment. These participants are leaving the shelter just like she mentioned, whenever they want. They don't have to stay the whole 45 days. So they're up and leaving. And while they're leaving, they're not filling out the proper documentation to let the shelter know why they're leaving, or if they enjoyed themselves, or they got the services that they wanted while they were at the shelter. Another one was the staffing and support. I know, like Kendra mentioned, like each month there's a $650 crisis. 650 number of crisis calls that the shelter gets, and due to the staffing, the workload analysis was very high. I know she mentioned how there are 2 DV specialists at the shelter at all times. I know there's also a first, second, and shift, third person that's there 24 hours a day. But again, due to the high call volume, that's not really enough staffing. And I know, speaking with Christy, she mentioned how they implemented a swing shift that can help, but again, it's not enough help. And the last weakness we found was the concept of the empowerment model. Like we said earlier, the shelter thrives off the concept empowerment model, basically allowing the participants to choose how they would want their treatment to look like. But staffing have made complaints that they feel that it's also enabling the participants as well. So you get participants that go there and they don't do nothing because they know that they don't have to due to the empowerment model.
Another effective option to the empowerment model is the sanctuary model. And this milieu-based model requires more proactive participation than the empowerment model to help survivors thrive, and addresses the impacts of trauma on clients and staff. For example, this model expects clients to participate when making decisions and planning by engaging clients more directly, using more accessible language, and use of less professional jargon. This model also engages both the staff and clients to focus on the future throughout the planning process, and has been used in other domestic violence shelters.
Okay, this is Kendra again. So for the opportunities that we found looking externally, so some of the key opportunities are the cultural shift in community demographic results in the need to serve more immigrant and refugees through multilingual staff and then use of communication tools such as the language line. So this is my field placement, and I can say I've definitely used language line multiple times, and it's very important, not just for people who are at shelter, but as well the crisis calls as well. So we would do 3-way calling, and I would be able to speak to someone from the language line who's translating for a person who's in crisis. So that's very important, that tool to have. Also, the effect of cultural views on divorce and victim blaming hinders the shelter's mission. Case managers continue to provide support groups and trainings in the community to educate and change the narrative about violence against women. But this is also a hindrance for women not wanting to come into shelter or staying in shelter, just because of, I guess, society's views on them, and also as far as their self-esteem, it plays a part in that as well. And then legislature as well. Changes to current legislation that protects survivors also supports the shelter's efforts. There's one called PAWS. It's Pet and Women's Safety Act of 2017. And so it is a bill that introduced to Congress last fall to include the threat of violence against pets of domestic violence victims as a violation of an order of protection, with a criminal penalty of up to 5 years in prison or a fine or both. Because I have seen this myself at shelter, that you'll get a text message from the abuser with a picture of your dog, and he'll say, come home and I'll feed him. So these are the things that, and then women leave because that affects them. So legislation, also helps. It can help or hurt, but as far as the mission of the shelter. And then overall, I think with most agencies, increasing funding through federal grants would enable the shelter to implement much needed programs. One of the things they definitely need would be childcare. The women want to go on job interviews and things like that. And they know that they cannot leave their kids unattended because the DV specialists aren't babysitters. So sometimes they can't go to job interviews. Or also increasing opportunities for residents to receive transitional housing assistance. Sometimes there's only 2 spots a month. It's based on funding. And so that can be a problem as well. At the end of 45-day stays, if there's no housing available, there's sometimes a woman and 3 kids. If she has no other place to go and no family, she has to go out on the streets unless she's able to find other resources that we try to provide. But again, that's based on, if we had funding, we would provide more housing opportunities. So those are the opportunities we found.
This is Abby again. The threats that we found facing the shelter are related to the social and political trends currently happening in Nashville. First, changes in legislation, funding, and government. According to the annual report, the YWCA received 35% of its revenue from the government in 2015, compared with just 22% in 2017. Nashville Mayor Megan Barry recently resigned. She, during her time as mayor, she was supportive of anti-violence efforts in the community. Her vice mayor, David Briley, is currently in office, but there's a special election at the end of May to vote in a new mayor, and so we don't know what the new mayor may or may not support as far as anti-violence efforts. Lastly, Tennessee's high rate of domestic violence continues to stretch the agency resources. 26,000 domestic violence cases were reported in Nashville in 2015. There was a 500% increase in domestic violence homicides in Nashville between 2014 and 2015.
Okay, so for the SWOT summary and our evaluation of the agency, we use the outcome-based evaluation, which is the organization really doing the right program activities to bring about the mission-rooted outcomes believed to benefit those served by the agency. And as mentioned before, the YWCA mission focuses on empowering women and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. The DV shelter's main activity of choice to make sure that they're meeting their mission is practicing the empowerment model. The empowerment model helps groups of people who are powerless become aware of their own power dynamics. It helps develop through skills of capacity and gaining reasonable control over their own lives. Although using this empowerment model can seem as a weakness to the organization, due to the enabling of the participants, this method has been worked fine for the shelter so far. Worries of limited shelter capacity, the changes in the legislation, funding, and government have all factored into the potential results of outcome benefits. However, with the cultural changing with women working to empower themselves, things like the Me Too movement, the high rates of domestic violence in Nashville and Tennessee, and also the promotion of grants that expand shelters throughout the DV shelter, its services will always be requested and used. And that is our presentation.
All right, thank you. All right, that was 20 minutes. So we'll switch over to group 3 and keep the presentations going.
Okay, so this is Keena Friday, and we conducted our SWOT analysis on the Tennessee Child Protective Services Office of Child Safety, or OCS, which is part of the Department of Children's Services. This presentation will be presented by Mandy Carroll, Donna Bailey, Christina Johnson, and myself, Keena Friday. The department is Tennessee's public child welfare agency, which establishes standards of best practices. The Department of Children's Services includes the Child Abuse Hotline, CPS investigations and assessment, non-custodial case management, foster care, and juvenile justice. The department also provides resources through resource linkage and the Family Crisis Intervention Program, or FCIP. DCS has over 4,200 employees, mostly made up of caseworkers and investigators. Our focus for this analysis will be on the Office of Child Safety, or OCS. However, there may be some overlap with programs and services. The Child Abuse Hotline receives over 140,000 calls each year. The department uses a multiple response system to determine the appropriate response to calls. Severe allegations are assigned to investigations. Low risk, non-severe cases are assigned to assessment. Referrals for resources and some truancy are referred to resource linkage, or FCIP. The Special Investigations Unit responds to allegations involving foster parents, daycares, and schools. Last year, the agency responded to over 25,000 investigations. The department's budget is over $737 million, with over $240 million allowed for child and family programs. The Office of Child Safety's leadership is shown on this organizational chart. Here you can see the executive leadership falls under the new Deputy Commissioner, Dimple Dudley. OCS includes community partnerships, the Child Abuse Hotline, internal quality control, and CPSI investigations. Continuous quality improvement, or CQI, legislation, and general counsel are also involved with the Office of Child Safety. Based on the most recent strategic plan for DCS, the agency's vision is that Tennessee children and youth are safe, healthy, and back on track for success. The mission is to ensure forever families for children and youth by delivering high-quality, evidence-based services in partnership with the community. The agency's priorities reflect the goals of safety, health, and permanency by focusing on creating a learning organization, a safe and engaged workforce, developing partnerships, and increasing communications. In the year 2000, the Brian A. lawsuit was filed against the department regarding children and their safety. The department recently exited the lawsuit after improving methods to ensure proper measures for reporting, responding to cases, workloads, training, performance measures, and other areas of concern. Next slide. These are some of the areas that were reviewed regarding the Office of Child Safety when conducting our SWOT analysis, and they will be discussed throughout our presentation.
Hi, this is Christina. For the strengths section, we identified 3 key areas of strengths. These include the strategic plan, program evaluation, and staff and human resources. The strategic plan has all the key components of an effective plan. This includes the mission statement, vision statement, strategic priorities, goals, accompanied by objectives to meet the goals, and an evaluation to track progress. This evaluation track includes measure of progress with a baseline, actual, and target goal. It also includes strategies, action steps, responsible parties, and fiscal year updates. The strategic plan is not only the vision of the department, but is a collaboration with community partners as well as other DCS staff. The strategic plan aligns well to the needs of the community and with the vision and mission of the department. Next slide. One of the ways that the quality and effectiveness of services is evaluated is by using the data received from a report called the Child and Family Services Reviews, which is administered by the Children's Bureau. The reviews are structured to help states identify strengths and areas needing improvement within their agencies and program. The graph on the screen shows the Tennessee CFSR performance overview outcomes from 2017. Looking at safety outcome number 2, by receiving a score of 23% substantially achieved, shows a large percentage of investigators failed to make concerted efforts to provide service to the family to prevent children's entry into foster care or reentry. The data reflects that OCS did not meet a strategic objective. With the data, the department can identify this as an area of needing improvement, and thereby will implement a plan to address ways they will improve this area of nonconformity. Another reason we identified program evaluation as a strength is due to their continuous quality improvement efforts. The Continuous Quality Improvement Program offers employees of different positions to make suggestions for the improvements for any aspects of work. If a proposal is drafted, the team can take the proposal to the central office for review and possible implementation over time. Both of these are effective program evaluations set with the ultimate goal to improve child welfare services for families and children. Next slide. The department has a high-quality training program to ensure their employees have the training and education needed to perform their duties. All employees are required to complete mandatory trainings. The image on the slide shows the training progression of the Office of Child Safety. Starting from the beginning, new employee orientation is the first line of training, giving their staff early on their clear defined roles and expectations. Looking at the Investigator Training Academy, this provides the knowledge and tools for case managers and investigative staff to do their jobs efficiently and effectively. There are also specialty trainings and ongoing trainings for both investigations and child abuse hotline employees. In an effort to strengthen and build upon their skills and abilities, these trainings are identified and developed through the quality review results and trends recognized. Such trainings include human trafficking safety and risk drug exposed child. These strengths align with the strategic plan of promoting a high-performing workforce, which in turn can provide quality customer service to the children and families of Tennessee. Next slide.
This is Kina. We will now discuss some weaknesses or challenges we discovered in our analysis. One challenge we found was within human resources and staffing. Some of those challenges were high turnover rate for investigators due to burnout and high caseloads, finding a good work-life balance due to on-call schedules and working in a crisis environment, safe work environment going into dangerous home situations, and just to the nature of the job. Equitable wages, though the governor has implemented some raises based on performance measures, we still do not match up with some of the national wages. Job satisfaction, self-care, and job stress due to vicarious trauma. Job involvement, meaningful work. Some employees may not feel that they are involved in decision making, and numbers driven. There are employees who feel that it's all, their performance is based only on data and not actually the work that they are doing. Another challenge we found was within information and technology. While some portions of the IT department serve as a strength, the department did experience some difficulty implementing the database for case tracking and documentation known as TFAX. The revisions to the database ultimately cost the department several $1 million to correct. The agency does provide 24-hour assistance for password resets and other minor issues. The agency also plans to roll out new equipment statewide within the next year. However, employees have experienced extensive delays in having major technical issues addressed with their current equipment. One example is some employees may not have internet access outside of the office, which defeats the purpose of having a mobile working environment.
This is Mandy. A couple of our opportunities is that CPS is viewed by the public as a valuable and necessary to protect children. The public generally has a positive view of DCS as the key to the protection of Tennessee children and at the hub of the coordinated public-private effort to address adverse childhood experiences. CPS and DCS can benefit from better outreach, especially leveraging the local citizens review panels to increase public awareness about child welfare issues, especially to non-traditional groups like neighborhood associations, Chamber of Commerce, etc. For example, Sherry Jones, the state representative out of Nashville, is considered the legislator's best-known advocate on children's issues. Jones has served on the Select Oversight Committee on Children and Youth, which focused on DCS. Jones is described by her critical questioning and willingness to support DCS. Bryan-Jones settlement, as discussed earlier from Keena, the Bryan-Jones settlement was a huge threat that has become an opportunity. The results from the Bryan A settlement include the creation of the Office of Child Safety within CPS, the creation of the state-of-the-art child death review process that creates safer outcomes for children and those who serve them, lower caseloads, and expand independent living services and programs, placement stability for children in foster care. The next group of opportunities include the Citizens Review Panel. The Citizens Review Panel, also referred to as the CRP, consists of 4 regional panels of experienced community volunteers. Evaluate the compliance of the Federal Child Abuse Prevention Treatment Act, also known as CAPTA, which provided child abuse and neglect prevention, treatment, and training for staff who work in the child protection system. Tennessee has 4 CRPs. The CRP must include volunteers who represent the community, who operate and are familiar with CPS. Evaluate how the child welfare system complies with CAPTA to improve the safety and well-being of Tennessee children. UT College of Social Office of Research and Public Service, also known as SWARPS, manages the CRP. Tony Law, the manager of SWARPS, indicated the strong relationship between CPS and CRP and how it can be improved by taking the initiative to get input from the CPS frontline staff as they consider the suggestions for improvement. Tennessee Joint Task Force is also an opportunity, as they are a multidisciplinary team that is in charge with identifying existing problems and recommending solutions regarding child abuse and neglect. Our last list of opportunities are the Tennessee pending bills to aid in earlier abuse detection and better child protection. Mentioned through an interview with Russell Marty, the Director of Legislation for DCS, there are pending bills to aid in earlier abuse detection and better child protection in Tennessee. This would assist in preventing and reporting of child sexual abuse through the family life curriculums that are already in most education systems. The program would discuss safety as well as what to do if someone tried to commit sexual abuse to a child. For CPS, this would mean earlier detection of child sexual abuse, which would increase our referrals, but also prevent sexual abuse from occurring if a child is knowledgeable of what to do.
Donna here, and topping the list of threats to CPS is the opioid addiction crisis. Tennessee has one of the highest rates for opioid overdose deaths and newborns with neonatal abstinence syndrome. The crisis places a tremendous strain on CPS to protect these at-risk children. To address the threat, CPS is spearheading a drug-exposed child initiative with hospital-based teams to help babies suffering from withdrawal and ensure safety and treatment for their families. Commercial sexual exploitation of minors is also a huge threat to CPS and Tennessee children, with CPS recently modifying its investigation process to provide more rigorous screening of these cases to help address the threat. The Tennessee bills Mandy just mentioned as opportunities to aid in abuse detection are also threats in that they require changes to CPS processes and additional burden on CPS resources to fulfill the requirements of the new laws. The rhetoric in Washington around welfare reform can have a huge and negative impact also. Any federal legislation decreasing funding to states for child welfare services is a direct threat to CPS's ability to help Tennessee children. CPS also clearly operates in the hostile task environment described in the Weinbach text, where personnel are burdened with managing around bureaucracy. So, for example, public officials may pay lip service to support for child protection issues while truly wanting to minimize those issues to make Tennessee look better. And even CPS clients sometimes resent and reject the agency's help. CPS's key strengths include collaboration, fostering continuous quality improvement, even given some of those performance issues that Christina mentioned, and also its high-quality learning environment. We saw some of the key challenges around human resources and IT, and the Bryan A settlement was a threat to CPS that has ultimately become an opportunity in reaping benefits for the agency, along with pending Tennessee legislation that provides great potential for CPS to aid Tennessee children. The opioid crisis, sex trafficking, and a hostile task environment are all key threats to CPS's effectiveness. Tennessee's successful exit of the Bryan A lawsuit created the Office of Child Safety within CPS for better focus and accountability. It led to improved collaboration with community partners and ultimately transformed CPS for improved outcomes. Sarah Russo, the attorney for children's rights that filed the Brian A. lawsuit, testified of the successful transformation by calling it a massive turnaround for a child welfare agency that was once routinely harming the children it was supposed to help. So although CPS continues to face multiple challenges and threats, the agency is positioned, along with DCS, to achieve its vision of ensuring Tennessee's children and youth are safe, healthy, and back on track for success.
Great, thank you. As the other group is setting up, I just wanted to just highlight something that I noticed in your presentation, just from a general talking point perspective, is you did a really good job at the beginning articulating the kind of what the strategic plan was and the impact of that and how much of a strength that was. And I'm sure that everybody here noticed how well kind of connected the dots were between what the plan was, how they were implementing the plan, and then how they were evaluating the plan, and then how they were using the data from all of those different points that were being evaluated to actually see how things were going and make kind of data-driven decisions around, okay, this is working well, this is not working well. And that's something that I think we've seen across the board on a couple of different presentations that is very, very hard for smaller agencies to do. So I just, if you ever see a small agency doing that, take note, because they're making some good decisions, and it's something that, you know, we just don't get to see every day. And I'm excited that that was so clearly articulated in your presentation. So thank you for that. All right, group 4. You're going to have to stop share. Group 3, please. Thank you.
All right, are we ready? Okay, so we are group 4, and we did our SWOT analysis. Sorry, my name is Christina. We did our SWOT analysis on the Appalachia Service Project, and we'll go ahead and get started. We're excited to share it with you. All right, so the Appalachia Service Project is a nonprofit that does home repair for low-income families in Central Appalachia. It's a very unique organization, and wanted to share the mission and vision statement with you also. ASP is a Christian ministry open to all people that inspires hope and service through volunteer home repair and replacement in Central Appalachia. They envision the eradication of substandard housing in Central Appalachia and the transformation of everyone who comes in contact with the ministry. These are two things that we thought are very unique to this organization and really speak to what this organization is at its core, that it wants to eradicate substandard housing and eliminate and work itself out of a job is a pretty cool thing to be striving towards. They have a lot of guiding principles that they use at the organization, and there are 2 that I have bolded here that I think speak a lot to who this organization is. So we accept people right where they are, just the way they are, is a really unique way to look at serving people and not thinking about those stereotypes or judgments that sometimes come into play when thinking of people who live in Central Appalachia. And then we believe that all people should be able to live in affordable, safe, and sanitary housing. Again, just trying to show that people deserve to have that housing to live in. So there are a few different programs that ASP has, and their biggest program is their summer home repair program. Now, this has been going on since 1969, where in its 50th summer. This is predominantly a high school program with high school youth volunteering to do the home repair over the summer. There's a year-round program that does home repair. This predominantly has adults or college students. That happens at some of the year-round centers from September to May. And all of these home repair programs happen in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And the headquarters and the main office is located in Johnson City, Tennessee. ASP has also started a disaster recovery program in the last few years, initially in response to a flood in Johnson City, Tennessee in 2013, expanding to West Virginia after the Greenbrier floods in the summer of 2016, building new homes. Currently have built over 50 new homes for families that lost them during the flood, and also expanding down to Gatlinburg after the fires. There is also a new build program for those families that do not have a home or their homes are considered too far gone for our home repair program. ASP has also started a college program which has opened up opportunities for students to start an ASP chapter on their campus so they can do home repair in their local communities, and then they are invited to come and serve and volunteer at various points throughout the year. ASP has 47 full-time employees and 7 part-time employees, and then they hire approximately 140 seasonal or summer employees. This is due to the number of volunteers that come in. In 2016, there were over 16,000 volunteers for the program, and approximately 12,000 of those volunteers came in the months of June and July in the summer program, and that's why there is the influx of hiring those summer employees. The annual budget is about $9.5 million, and the primary revenue source is from the volunteer registration fees.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikita Allen, and I will be covering the strengths for ASP. One of ASP's strengths are the large base of volunteers. ASP has a substantial number of volunteers that come in from all over the country, and they have been operating for over 50 years. There are currently over 410,000 adult volunteers serving with ASP in rural Central Appalachia that repair homes for low-income families. They're the organization's drive to meet the mission of a warmer, safer, and drier homes for needy families. Volunteers play a fundamental role in achieving this mission. ASP recommends that anyone can volunteer as long as you're the age of 14 years and older, with the exception of 13-year-olds that have completed the 8th grade, are able to volunteer with ASP. It gives them a wider range of volunteers because of the low age for volunteering instead of needing to be 18 years of age and older. There is a fee of $325 per person for a week, or they have the option of doing a $65 per day for a shorter trip. The fee contributes to the volunteers' lodging, their daily meals, construction materials, and training. Volunteers work on a variety of different projects, ranging from strengthening foundation, patching leaky roofs, fixing roofs, building walls, digging flood channels, installing plumbing, and painting exteriors. Volunteers with ASP serve in 5 states, as Christina mentioned. That's Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee and North Carolina. It's important to know that these volunteers, they do not work alone, and they don't have to bring their own supplies or equipment. Another strength within the organization is the emphasis on partnership. ASP has a large emphasis on partnership. They collaborate with many outside organizations, and they have recently partnered with the Home Depot Foundation, the Walt Roswell Family Farms, Food City, and Bristol Motor Speedway. They use these partnerships to further the work in the Central Appalachia. They also partner with the Holston Conference of the United Methodist Church, Mountain Tough Recovery Team, and many other agencies. Currently, ASB is assisting and partnering with the long-term recovery for the low-income families that were recently devastated by the wildfires in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. ASB has a wide range of stakeholders that contribute to their mission. They're affiliated with the People in Cooperation, Good Samaritan, and the Good Samaritan Ministries that accept toiletries, food, and clothing supplies. The organization received many philanthropic financial contributions. Financial contribution is the best way to help the organization achieve their goals. There are several stakeholders that contribute to ASB. The main ones are the Carpenters Club, which gives you the option of donating a sum of $10, $25, or $50 monthly. There's also the Angel and Blue Jeans, where donors have the option of donating a said donation and they receive a t-shirt or a sweatshirt in return. The organization also collaborate with some companies to help promote or utilize their matching gift program. That means companies can match their employees' donated financial gift or their volunteer hours, and it can be arranged through the employer's human resource department to see if they're eligible. The organization also accepts or receives stock donation, and it's important to know that upon the donation of a stock, the donors are able to receive a tax break of a charitable income tax reduction. The process is beneficial for both the donor company and the organization. Finally, they can't be all work and no play. Volunteers have the opportunity to have free time to relax, play, experience Appalachian culture. But most importantly, they have the opportunity to build and network with other volunteer groups. Overall, it's a wonderful way to boost the local economy while assisting in mitigating local poverty. Another strength with the organization is the donor satisfaction. Donors have indicated a high degree of confidence and satisfaction in the organization. The organization is extremely transparent about how funds are used and how the organization operates. That way, donors feel connected to the cause they are supporting, and it also gives them an impactful experience. ASB is also transparent about the distributions of those funds, and you can look at their annual audits can be found on their website. There's the 2015 audit along with the 2016. The 2017 audit is currently not yet available because it's in process. ASB high satisfaction rate of client donors were indicated by a survey that showed a positive view of the organization, and that donors and clients will work with the organization and recommend the organization for other groups for retreats, team building exercises. ASB also has a donor bill of rights that has been implemented to protect donors and their funds, and those rights can also be found on the website. That also has contributed to donor satisfaction. Lastly, a major organization's strength is that people feel that they have a personal connection to the organization. As stated in the mission statement, ASB wants everyone who meets this goal to be transformed and show through the different types of people and the deep sense of connection with the organization. It extends from donors to volunteers to employees and finally to the families that they're working with.
Okay, this is Charity. ASP has 4 main areas that we recognize as weaknesses. The first is ASP as an outsider. So the business model is structured so that the organization enters communities to provide services, and it is assumed that ASP's presence will always be accepted and welcomed. The next weakness is in the area of 4 non-summer projects. Each of these projects operates at a loss of about $50,000 per year, which is a substantial amount of money, and the only exception to this was in 2016. Another concern involves the dependence on the volunteer fees. These fees are used to fund the service projects, and without the fees, the projects could not be paid for. So a decline in volunteerism could be catastrophic to ASP, and we'll discuss that further when we discuss our threats. And technological risks are also worth mentioning. ASP stores everything electronically, and almost all communication is done electronically. Currently, ASP provides Microsoft Office 365 to its employees, and Outlook is used for email communication. SharePoint is the main file sharing platform used, and Dropbox and Google Docs are also used to access data. So all of these services are dependent on internet accessibility. And another issue that ASP also currently faces is employees lack troubleshooting abilities when these services are not functioning as they should. So ASP has an IT network that is called upon often for support, but a comprehensive training program would be beneficial and could alleviate some of that dependence on IT.
Okay, this is Jade. I'll be covering the opportunities. So ASP really likes to collaborate with other agencies, especially ones that are similar to them. This not only kind of helps the company to save money by lessening some of the responsibility, but it also helps in aiding sustainability. You don't want to have too many people kind of doing the same thing and leaving gaps in coverage. If a person had 20 blankets and they needed sheets, you don't want to keep donating blankets to them. ASP does the same a lot with their services. So they like to try to collaborate with other people. Some past collaborations for ASP would be the Appalachia Funders Network and the Mary Reynolds Foundation. I prematurely shared the links to those two, their websites, in the group chat. I apologize for that. I was trying to get those in there. But if you want to look at some of their past collaborations in more detail, then you can look on those two sites. Another thing is an opportunity for them is local recruitment. According to the nationalservices.gov, Tennessee ranks 33 out of 51 for the number of volunteers in the state. ASP is currently trying to develop a local volunteer network for volunteer recruitment to help with that. Lastly, I wanted to speak about the gift shop. A great opportunity for many companies, especially those that rely on volunteers, are gift shops, because gift shops not only bring in revenue for the company, but they also offer free marketing for the company, because their gift shop actually has everything from baby onesies to hats to tape measures to bumper stickers. So when someone sees that ASP logo, then they will possibly ask, well, what's ASP? So that offers the company not only revenue in those sales, but also free marketing in that it gets their name out, it gets the word out.
This is Dolores, and here we'll talk about external threats to the agency, with the first threat being the fluctuating cost of materials. Fluctuations are essentially due to these three factors. First, supply and demand. As home building increases, so does demand, and so do costs. Secondly, fuel costs, which are incredibly unpredictable. When the price of gas increases, delivery costs are always affected. And lastly, just general inflation. This graph is a really good example of unpredictability. It shows both 1 month cost changes and 1 year cost changes. In 1 month, softwood lumber, which is essentially pines, were up 2% with a 9% increase in the whole year, in the entire year. This agency purchases mostly in bulk and passes that cost onto the volunteer participation fees. That may mitigate some of the price volatility, but still the agency is subject to market prices. External threats to volunteer base. We established already that this agency is heavily volunteer reliant, and the number of volunteers has only held steady since 2009. It was determined that the most significant threat to the volunteer base was the overall decline in church attendance. This matters because the vast majority of ASP volunteers are church groups from various areas. If a church attendance declines, so do available volunteers, and therefore this is a serious external threat. A baseline sample of 35,000 was taken in 2007 and measured again in 2014. It showed as many as 92% of Americans as believers in God. However, those claiming a denomination was down 10%. And along those lines, the fastest growing segment were the nuns, and the nuns grew to 16%. And what a nun is a person who may or may not be agnostic or atheist. They may actually be believers of some form or fashion, but they are not practicing, they are not observing. The key characteristic of a nun is that they are deliberately not affiliated with any organized religion.
All right, so our conclusion is we believe that what Dolores was just talking about, the decline in attendance in mainline denomination churches is a big threat and kind of ties in with that weakness that ASB relies heavily on volunteer registration fees as a source of revenue. And so that is something that is to really be taken seriously for this organization. And something that we saw as a major strength was a strong sense of community and connection to the organization. There's this focus that this is a relationship ministry with construction on the side, and that is what brings people together and makes people wanting to come back and continue serving to help further the mission of this organization. And here are our references.
All right, well done. Are there any questions for the ASP group? All right, well, we are making fantastic time. Thank you, everybody, for staying on time. We only have one group left, so I think we're actually going to get out of here early, unless y'all just want to hang out and chit-chat for a little while. All right, group 5.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Sharice Young, and I'm a member of Group 5. We're going to give you a brief analysis and overview of our agency. Go to the next slide. Okay, so we had the Lighthouse Peer Support Center, which is owned and operated through Helen Ross McNabb Center of Hamilton County. I was lucky enough to spend part of my internship at the Lighthouse, so I'll be the point of contact. Helen Ross McNabb Center actually operates 2 peer support centers in East Tennessee, one in Knoxville and one in Chattanooga, and the Chattanooga Center is the one that we'll be covering. Peer support centers are client-run rehabilitation services for adults with mental illnesses. The Lighthouse is a place where these individuals can go to interact with their peers, have fun, and learn positive life and social skills. 3 main goals of the peer support centers are education, socialization, and support. And their activities are included but not limited to games, gardening, volunteer opportunities, art. They also have a point store where members can do different chores and cleaning assignments around the center and earn points, which they can use or spend in the point store to get different items. They hold monthly members meetings to discuss improvements and new groups and even new outings or places to go, even meals that they could possibly have that the members might enjoy. They have movie day, they hold various classes, groups, meals, cookouts, and outings throughout Chattanooga. Next slide. The Lighthouse Center has been in operation for over 15 years. It was originally run through Fort Wood Mental Health Center, but was purchased by Helen Ross McNabb when they expanded into Hamilton County. The Peer Support Center requires no financial obligation from its members at any time. All meals, supplies, activities, and transportation are free of charge, as the Peer Support Center serves primarily low-income members of Hamilton County and surrounding counties. There are around 165 members signed up at the Lighthouse, and they serve anywhere from 20 to 65 of those members on any given day, depending on that day's scheduled activities. And the center also, it prints out and offers monthly schedules for its members to take home, so they'll know which days they'd like to come in or which days they may want to skip. The Lighthouse is also completely funded by a single grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services and through Helen Ross McNabb. Next slide. Helen Ross McNabb Center equally divides that one grant between the Knox County and the Hamilton County centers, and it covers any overages out of pocket, so there is no more funding actually coming in for the Lighthouse. At one point, they did have volunteers that would come in and, I guess you would say, donate, but they don't have very many volunteers coming in from what I saw these past couple semesters. The current budget allows for 1 full-time director and 2 part-time staff members, all of which must have or have had a mental illness at some point in time. They rely on some volunteers, but like I said, there aren't very many currently. And also each semester, the center also assists in the education of 1 intern in any of the mental health fields. Next.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Ayers. The Lighthouse also has several internal strengths. The kind of heart and soul of this program is the program manager, Susan, who is really beloved by the members of the program. She's extremely dedicated to the program and has proven to be very receptive to the members' concerns and suggestions and makes all the decisions with members' well-being in mind. So like I said, she's the heart and soul of the Lighthouse, which is both a strength and a weakness, as we'll talk about a little bit later. With all that in mind, it's a flexible and diverse program. It makes it possible to implement a variety of activities. As Sharice mentioned, there is a reliance on volunteers, and the volunteers they have often are able to bring their hobbies or their professional skill sets to the center, and programming can be centered upon that. Also, when there's a large number of volunteers, it helps to cut costs. They bring their passions, and often students can be volunteers who are learning their trade, such as teaching nutrition classes and such. Geographically, the Lighthouse building is located right on the bus route and is within walking distance of 3 different Helen Ross McNabb supportive group homes, which makes accessing the center fairly easy. And as Sharice mentioned, this is a peer support structure, and so the members take ownership of the program, even taking care of the building itself, and all clients are considered members and have rights and responsibilities that come with that member title. We've learned in our classes that peer support groups are extremely effective, and so it is a strength that members can help provide peer support to one another. And while there are 2 staff members and a program manager, there really is a little hierarchy besides that, because it is a peer support centered center. Finally, there is high member satisfaction. Sharice, who is our person of contact at the agency, chalks that up to the variety of programs that they offer, as well as the program manager's receptiveness to her members' needs, concerns, and desires. The program manager also occasionally polls the members to find how they are feeling about different programs, although that is not an official evaluation method. It is just one that she personally uses.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I'm going to share some of the weaknesses that we discovered about the Lighthouse. The first weakness that we that we're going to touch on is technology issues. The Lighthouse currently has only 2 working computers, and one of the computers is specifically used only by the director. This situation leaves only 1 computer for members to use for needs such as job searches, leaving them with only limited computer use if multiple members are in need of using it at around the same time. The next weakness that we identified is budget and finances, and current funding does not allow for third-party programs or building renovations other than those to operate. So this has made the second floor of the facility unusable due to repair needs. And another is that the current funding model makes it nearly impossible to allocate additional resources for the program. Without outside funding resources, applying for additional grant money is unpredictable, and it's also time-consuming. Next, we identified organizational culture and change management to be a weakness. The agency director has very little supervision from upper management, which could be problematic due to regular and effective communication. And then in terms of change management, there are no issues of change or development on the horizon, which could be indicative of stagnation within the agency that needs to be addressed in order to attain a greater level of progress within the agency. And then the last weakness that we found was employee relationships and functioning. So there are 2 part-time employees there, and they don't really get along very well with one another, but they are cordial with one another. And additionally, the fact that they have a small staff could be a potential issue if anything were to happen to either of the employees, which could leave members vulnerable due to lack of support staff. And we felt that this would be especially true if anything were to happen to the director.
Hi, I'm Sheila McGinty, and I'm going to tell you about the potential opportunities that we came up with for the Lighthouse. To apply for some additional grants, there are other external sources of funding that could help pay for additional staff and technology. The director has stated that there are a couple that she could apply for, but she lacks the time to do so. Another grant could also help with the next opportunity, which is expansion. The agency is only one of 45 peer support centers located in the state of Tennessee, but it's the only one in Hamilton County. In Hamilton County, there is a growing mental health need and homelessness in the community. The Lighthouse could consider moving to a larger building to expand their services, or to purchase another additional building in a different area of town. Another thought about expansion would be more adventurous and costly still, but there are 3 neighboring counties that do not have any peer support centers. This could be an opportunity for Helen Ross McNabb and the Lighthouse to consider expanding services to these counties. They could do research to see which of the 3 has the most need and start from there. Another opportunity would be to make more use of their area resources. One such resource is the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, which could provide more interns from their various programs to lead groups at the agency while earning class credits. These students could be majors in psychology, art, social work, nutrition, etc., who could provide all different topics of groups for the agency, as well as helping with group outings and other needs. More advertising in general for volunteers would be useful. At times, there is more of a need than the current volunteer staff can provide. Being understaffed has led to a missed opportunity when it comes to donations. Panera Bread has offered the center free bread and pastries, but the food needs to be picked up by staff. The problem is that there often is not enough staff to do this. Therefore, this opportunity is often missed. Currently, Helen Ross McNabb has an account with the Chattanooga Food Bank, so they do have a source of food, but this was an opportunity to supplement their food supply, as they currently are only able to provide 1 full meal a week to the members. There are likely other opportunities to reach more volunteers and to acquire donations and gifts from area businesses and individuals if the lighthouse were better at making their needs known to the public. Next.
Hello everyone, my name is Quadira and I am going to go over external threats to the organization. So one of the first threats that we all recognize during our research of this project is noncompliance. So with noncompliance, this refers to outside agencies who refer clients to the lighthouse. Clients who are lower level functioning are considered inappropriate for this program. The basis of this program is that clients are able to fully function, they're able to take responsibilities for their own actions, and that they are fully competent in order to participate in this program. If people are referred to this program who do not meet those eligibility requirements, it could be a liability factor for the program. I know we've had situations where outside agencies have literally dropped people off on the front steps of the lighthouse, not really knowing exactly what services are served through the lighthouse, which leads me also to the second part of noncompliance, which is having accurate and in-depth understanding of what exactly the lighthouse is and what services that they actually provide to the community. This is most helpful to outside agencies to actually have a better understanding of what kind of clients should be referred to the lighthouse for extra services. That is a huge external threat because if we do not have people coming in that are eligible for services, that could affect continuing to receive grant money for those services. Next is limited or if any community donations or assistance. As we heard earlier, this grant that funds both Helen Ross McNabb and the Lighthouse is split in two. There are no additional outside donations or funding sources for the Lighthouse. As you can imagine, once grant money has been allocated that has been given to the Lighthouse for specific purposes, there is very little room for additional spending. There is a significant lack of community involvement when it comes to contributing financially to the program and the peer support. This makes it very difficult to compete with other agencies in the area who have outside resources that are able to help with funding. And when you have a smaller agency such as the Lighthouse Peer Support Center, it does become very difficult if there is no outside funding to stay operational in the long run in the face of longevity. Another external threat located right in Hamilton County is the AIM Center. The AIM Center is Clubhouse Peer Support Model. It is psychiatric rehabilitation services. They offer some of the same services as the Lighthouse does. However, these services are not free. A person must have specific insurance to utilize their services. And what this means is certain populations are automatically weeded out. If you don't have the right HMO or PPO, you are not able to utilize the AIM Center. This eliminates access to this awesome resource. And last but not least, that brings us to competition. Just like with any other agency, if you have people or other organizations coming into the area, there's going to be competition, depending on what services are provided. If the services are similar, if they're different, that all accounts for funding and the amount of clients that you have for your agency. And quite frankly, with the Peer Lighthouse, with it being so small, they don't really have the strategic planning. They don't really have the organizational model, the expansion model to really compete and keep up with any larger agency that may come into the area. So that is a significant threat to this organization. Next slide, please. So just to sum it up, this is the mission statement of the Lighthouse. They like to look at themselves as a lighthouse standing at the edge of the sea, helping others find their own way to the shore. So within this presentation, we've heard weaknesses, opportunities, and significant threats that are up against, that the Lighthouse is up against at this time. In the midst of all of these trials, they continue to be a staple of stability and progress in Hamilton County, and they still serve as a safe haven for those individuals who are in need of support if they experienced mental health in the past or if they are currently experiencing mental health. But as we know, there are significant organizational funding and expansion issues that will surely impact longevity for this program. Thank you guys. These are our references, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for group 5? Thank you. If you could go ahead and stop sharing group 5, please.
Is it still sharing? Because it's telling me it's not sharing anymore.
Oh, sorry. No, maybe it's just because you're talking, it was up there. Okay. Thank you all. That was awesome. I learned so much from you all. And I really appreciate all of the hard work that you all put in. I know this was a multi-week, perhaps multi-month journey, but hopefully you all understand more about why we asked you to do this assignment, and really understand moving forward when you encounter some of the issues like the threats or the weaknesses out in your future places of employment or future internship sites, that you really have a good understanding of kind of how these very complex systems work together to create the agencies that all of you are going to be working in. Since we do have, I'm not going to keep you all till 7:30, but since we do have just a couple of extra minutes in our dedicated time, I would love to just check in with you all and see if anybody feels, I'm totally putting you all on the spot, but I am curious about some of your feedback about this assignment, and I would love to hear from you about what you liked best about the assignment, kind of what you learned from it, if there was anything that really stood out to you about it, good, bad, or ugly too. If you want to share some ways that you really detested the assignment, that's fine too. But I am curious if anybody would feel comfortable sharing that. I'm kind of in the process of looking at this course and seeing what improvements I can make to certain assignments, and this is such a big one. I would love to hear from you all now that it's kind of behind you and you've done all the work, and can maybe think about it a little more.
I had one thing I was going to say. My group was rather large. This is Jade. I don't know if you can see me at the top or not, but
I just see your name right now. I can't.
Oh, okay. But mine was a really large group, which would sometimes work really well for people, but I guess because our group was so large, we had so many ideas and so much that we had to constantly compile, so many schedules to work around. I think our group worked really well. I'm not trying to throw us under the bus at all. Like, we were all very kind to each other and we worked really well, but it felt like there was just so much going on. It would have probably done a little bit better, at least for an online course, to have a fewer people in the group, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though we worked really well together, it was just a lot of ideas bouncing back and forth all the time, a lot of schedules to work around, a lot of that. And even though we did work well together, it was a little bit more added stress just because we did have so many people there.
That is really helpful. Thank you. So you think that, like, just looking at the assignment with, without changing any of the requirements, just simply like limiting it to like 3 maybe?
Yeah, I think it would have worked a little bit better with 3 to 4 people, 4 at most. Just because, like, with ours, for instance, we had kind of Christina, because she knows the most about the organization, kind of doing our introduction and our conclusion, and then we had to section out the 4 sections of the SWOT portion to kind of make it flow and make it make sense for the project. But it was just, I don't know, it felt like there was just a lot going on with so many people, even though we did work well together, and I really liked my group.
Awesome. Thank you, Jade. Would anybody because I know there was some, it's almost evenly divided between the number of groups that had 5 and the number that had 4, which historically I had that many simply because this is such a big assignment. So it was just a lot to move through. But again, I didn't actually think about changing that, given that I eliminated the written portion. So I think had you still had the written portion, you all probably would have been really happy that you had 5 people. But I can see how with only the presentation that maybe that was a little bit hard to deal with. Would any of the groups with 4, can you all speak to Jade's point about like, did any of you all feel the same way that Jade did, even though you had 4 instead of 5?
My group had 4. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my group had 4. It was me, Tina, Donna, and Christine, and I didn't feel like it was hard. I felt like with 4 members it worked really well because we were able to evenly distribute everything. I can see where Jade is coming from with the 5 members. I think that may be a little harder, especially with scheduling issues and stuff. But I think 4 works really well. I don't know if 3 would work that great because it would be 1 less, and it may be harder to evenly distribute the work. But I think for my group and our experience, because I loved working with our group, I think we did a fantastic job together and we were able to collaborate well. So I think that 4 works great.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. That's helpful. Are there any other kind of outside of the number of members in each group, are there any other kind of things that you all really liked about the assignment or things that you thought were kind of overly hard or just any other kind of feedback?
I have to say that the portion where you had us have a group leader, for me, I ended up being our group leader, and that it helped me tie in kind of some of the readings we did earlier in the semester. And so I personally got a decent bit out of that, just trying to think about that. So the early portion of this project, when we made the strengths finder matrix and such like that, I found to be helpful. I don't think we ended up thinking about it as much toward the end of the semester when we were focusing on the project. So I don't know if there were to be some sort of reflection, aspect in which we were supposed to reflect how we thought our strengths played out in our groups. I don't know if that would be helpful.
That's included in the group evaluation statement.
I see Donna doing a scary face. I was looking at her. I was like, I know I'm saying something.
Is that, am I missing something? I was like, because I
don't think you are.
Okay, maybe you'll be fit. Maybe you'll be complete and reflect.
Yeah, come back to me
in the next 3 hours.
In a couple hours, yes. But being the group leader helped me to tie in those readings at the beginning of the semester.
Okay, thank you for that, because that's exactly what that whole process was supposed to do. So thank you for that feedback. That makes me feel good about that. And are there and I can see how in the wearing that group leader hat that would have sort of forced you into that role of having to think about it. So can anybody speak to Elizabeth's point that was not a group leader, and were you able to engage in some rich discussion around some of those earlier readings, or kind of how your strengths were playing out? Or did you notice particularly where you kind of noticed that a group leader had a certain style? Or and I did ask you to answer all these questions in the group evaluation statement, so I definitely will be reading all of those. But can anybody speak to that who was not a group leader?
Well, I was in Elizabeth's group, and I think her strengths profile is what kind of helped us pick her as the group leader, because all of her strengths were in the relationship building. So we figured if anybody could bring us together as a group, it would be Elizabeth.
That's awesome. Okay.
And the same thing with mine. I was the point of contact, and my main strength was in the consistency. So getting the information together in a timely manner, getting it to the group, being able to answer questions, it fit my strengths profile. So the strengths profile really did tie in a big way to the SWOT analysis.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I definitely see that in your kind of references. It was like every slide. It was like, we would not know this if it was not for Sharice. So you were very consistent in getting information. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for connecting those dots. Are there any other comments about the assignment?
Hi, this is Nikita. I have a comment. I really enjoyed the time frame of the assignment because it gave me an opportunity to focus on the readings and also my assignments in my other classes, especially towards the end where it feels like everything is so rushed and due at the same time. It was just really great that we had a time frame to breathe. So I was able to do the research that I needed on a little space basis. Like I gave myself some time this week and then the next week. So I really enjoyed that.
Good. So it was helpful, just to clarify, so it was helpful that you had all the instructions and you kind of knew who your group members were like really early on, but then it wasn't due until way later, so you could really space everything out over a long period of time. Okay, awesome.
I had an unrelated question as well.
Sure.
The course reflection and the assignment said that there would be a rubric. I'm not sure where to find
So
that.
it's in the it's in Canvas. Let me.
It's under modules. It's in the modules section. You'll see it.
Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah. So here's the course reflection rubric. That's another assignment. Is it under module? I don't think it's. I thought it was under assignments. Because see, it's not. Oh, is it in the instructions? Sorry, I have so many of these. So many of these. Which one is it in? There we go.
If you're looking for the group evaluation, yeah, it's under the, it's under that.
No, the course reflection rubric, not
Oh,
the group.
yeah, that's under. Okay, yeah. So here's all the questions that you need to answer for the group evaluation statement. So everybody has that, right?
Yeah, I was just talking about the next assignment.
Yes. So that is right here under assignment information, course reflection paper. Here's the rubric. And actually, I'm glad you asked about this because I did want to, there was one piece that I wanted to mention to you that I don't think that I have shared this info. So here's everything, and then here's the rubric. So everything is in here. So this is just 3 to 5 pages. This paper is really the bookend to your leadership self-assessment. So since you filled out your leadership self-assessment and you have some feedback, everybody did really well. At least most people did really well on that assignment. So you should be able to kind of reflect back on that. And because that was the beginning of the semester where you're kind of thinking, where am I now? Here at the end of the semester, I want you to think about kind of what did you learn based on everything, kind of how are you able to apply your strengths over the semester, kind of a little bit about what Elizabeth was saying earlier. But then also, and this part is really important it's all important, but this part I'm very little bit piece back on your growing edge, because we're always trying to move that growing edge, right? We're always trying to move our limitations. So lastly, I want you to think about a professional development plan. And the college, it's been a little while, but the college has done some follow-up surveys and research with our graduates. And we have, in past studies, we have learned that the majority of our graduates wind up in supervisory or managerial positions within 5 years of graduation. So that is, some of you all, it takes 3 years just to complete your degree. So if you can imagine, just kind of another few years, you may be in a supervisor or managerial position. And so a lot of the information that we have talked about this semester is going to be extremely relevant to you all when you are, not if, but typically when you are promoted. So this is an opportunity for you to think about things like that as you move forward. And, so basically, what are your kind of growing edge, your current limitations that you can think of, and then how do you want to work to address those in very concrete ways just over the next little bit, and just kind of a timeline. So this is sort of a mini personal strategic plan for you all to be looking at moving forward, so that's only going to help you. There's no, this is going to be such a great opportunity for you to think about, okay, how do I want to target my continuing education? Sort of like it's kind of your own mini SWOT. If you looked at all these, you spent several weeks looking at an agency's weaknesses or opportunities or threats, and said, we kind of have these recommendations, or we think that this is a big deal and you should focus on this. Think about that for yourself. So what are your limitations? What is your growing edge? And kind of what are some key areas? Here's some areas. This is a such as, so this is not an exclusive list. If there's something that is important to you that's not reflected here, that's fine for you to include. But this is just a great way for you to stay connected to your path moving forward as a advanced generalist, or even a specialized clinical social worker moving forward in the field. So can't wait to read these. Very, very excited about your future in the field. And this is just, a last reminder that you never, ever, ever stop learning. You never stop growing. And it's so important for you to stay, keep your eye on the prize and stay focused on that. So that is the rubric. It's, been up all semester. Just now realized that I hadn't sent you a reminder about it until today. So glad I threw that in there. So you've got a couple of days. And again, it's only 3 to 5 pages. So if you're looking at this going, oh gosh, I forgot we had another paper, don't freak out. I feel confident that you'll be able to get this done, but it's pretty much going to be the same format. If I told you that you did not use the headings when you completed your leadership self-assessment, please, please, please do that. It is for your own benefit. There's a couple of you all who kind of missed a whole section because you didn't use the headings, or maybe you just kind of weren't, just spaced out for a second or whatever. But pay attention to these, use these as your headings. You can abbreviate these sections, but just it helps for grading. It helps to make sure that you all are following everything and can get as many points as you deserve. So please make sure you do that for this assignment also. Any questions about this? Okay. Well, any last comments about the SWOT assignment? I'm really, one of the major goals of that assignment was to really have a concrete kind of experiential process, because so many of you all come to this program with really varied backgrounds, and there's absolutely nothing that is consistent about our cohorts. So this was a place for us to all kind of meet in the middle and learn a lot about how agencies work and all that kind of good stuff. So any comments about that part of it, just the fact that you were really kind of learning on the job, so to speak, with this one? Any last comments about anything before we say adieu? It's time to go. School's out for summer. All right, Sharice. Well, all right, it is time to go. Thank you all so much again for your dedication. I have absolutely adored having you in this class. Know that I am on your side for the rest of your time in the program, even though I will not have you for any more classes, which does make me very, very sad. But alas, I am still here. Just because you don't see me on the screen does not mean that I'm not here. So if you ever need anything or have any questions, especially about macro social work practice, I am your built-in friend and mentor. So please do not hesitate to contact me, even if it's 2 years from now. And make sure you stay in touch. And I hope to see you all at graduation. Hope you can come up to Nashville from wherever you are. And we'll see you at graduation, if not next year, then the next year. Y'all have a great summer, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.